feeling where it's just like, man, I want to go home. I had this trip that we got so lucky to take. I don't know, it was like 13 years ago or something like that. And I was in my senior year of college, and we got the chance to go on like the best spring break trip we've ever gone on. We went on like a 10-day trip as a family to Italy. Anybody ever been to Italy? All right, cool. Anybody ever been to Europe? All right, awesome. So this is the only time I've been to Europe, the only time I've been to Italy, and it was incredible. Before I was even like a pastor, like I was always just into like Bible history and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, man, I'm going to go to the place where like Peter was, and I'm going to go to the place where like Paul was, and I'm going to go to like all these early churches, and I was so excited for that. But I love like ancient history too, so I'm like into like the Roman Empire and all that kind of stuff. And I remember we're on like a 15-hour flight overnight, and we're flying over the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm just thinking to myself, it was like we were going to get there like 6 a.m. and just like start our day. And I was thinking like in a few hours, I'm going to be standing outside the Colosseum. Like I've seen it in books, I've seen it in history class and all that kind of stuff, but I've never actually been there. I'm going to be standing right outside of this amazing, amazing thing. I'm going to go to like all these cathedrals. I'm going to go to the Vatican, and I'm going to go to St. Peter's Basilica. And it's like I walked into St. Peter's Basilica, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like someone ever built this, especially hundreds of years ago. Like it's insane how big it is, and how tall it is, how magnificent it is. And then like we saw like the statue of David. You know that one? He's like 12 feet tall and naked. I don't know why he's naked, but he's naked and he's ripped, and he's got like the quads and all that kind of stuff. He's doing what like all my senior boys up here do it when I see them at the gym. They're always like wearing the short shorts, and they're coming up to the mirror and they're doing one of these, and they're like trying to show off their quads. Like we used to like arms, but now guys are all about the legs. Anyway, so I see like David, and we went to the Sistine Chapel, and like I didn't even know I was in the Sistine Chapel. Actually, I'm so not cultured. Like I thought I was in a waiting room, and I was like, I don't know what I was picturing, but like I thought that the whole roof was just like. Have y'all ever heard like the creation of Adam, where it's like God's finger and then Adam's finger, and they're like, y'all remember that one? I thought the whole roof was that. And so I like keep waiting to go into that room, and I'm like, what's this, or what are all these paintings? And then everyone's looking around, everyone's like hush hush and like all this stuff, and I was like, oh, like it took me like 20 minutes to realize where I was. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So like I got to do all that kind of stuff, and it was incredible. And like not every country has good food, but I mean, come on, Italy's got like about the best food you can have. So we were eating just like pizza, like every 10 minutes we just stop and go to a shop to get pizza or like crepes or whatever, and it was awesome. And and it was great. However, there were some things that made me really, really homesick. That made me want to go home. And it wasn't like I was there for years or something. It was just a 10-day trip. But one thing that was really hard, and you know this if you've gone to another country where they don't speak English, it's hard to go to a place where they don't speak the same language as you, right? Like it's hard to go somewhere where like you can't communicate. Like you're trying and you're like pointing at stuff and you're like trying to like show them what you want, and you're like trying to say whatever words that they know, and they're just looking at you like, bro, I don't know English, whatever, and we're Americans, so we're like, oh, why don't you know English? I mean, whatever, like, that's why nobody likes us. And so like I was going around, and I just felt really like out of place, because I felt so just silly. Like I'm like, I can't even talk like you. And it's not like a intelligence thing. It's just you don't know what you don't know. You don't know a language unless you've learned it. And so I went there, and I was just I felt out of place the whole time, and I felt like a tourist. I hate feeling like a tourist. I hate feeling like a tourist. And I'm like trying to like blend in and not be like the corny dads with like the sweater tied around their waist and the fanny pack and all that kind of stuff. But like I just felt out of place. And then a couple things happened that really made me angry. The first thing, well, they really both happened in like the first few days of the trip, and they kind of turned me off to the rest of the trip. But the first thing is that me and my dad, we went to this cathedral that like I heard about. It was called St. Peter's in Chains Cathedral, or whatever. And it was under the altar. They had like the chains that Peter broke out of when he was in prison in the New Testament. Now I don't know if they're really the chains, but they looked old, and they're in this bulletproof glass box. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So we walked all the way across Rome, and we went to this beautiful cathedral, and we're looking at different art pieces and everything by Michelangelo, and like and then we realized we're miles from our hotel, or the place where we were staying, and so I was like, well, we could take the bus. My dad was like, well, we don't know how to take the bus here. And I was like, true, but like we could just get on it and just see what happens. And he was like, all right. So we got on the bus, and we tried to pay, but like we don't speak Italian, and we didn't really know how buses work. And I don't even ride the bus in America, so like I don't know what I was thinking. I don't ever ride the bus. So we get on, and we're just like, maybe we'll just drive around on the bus for a while, and we won't get caught. How nice for two pastors to just try to steal from the Italian government. So we were just riding around Rome, and we really don't even know where we get off. So we might have been getting like farther away from our hotel. We had no idea. So we're just sitting there, and we're like, if they get mad at us, maybe we pay on the way off. Maybe that's it. Apparently that wasn't it, because two police officers got onto the bus, and they start checking tickets. They go around, and they're checking tickets, and we're like, can I just blend into the seat? Like, are they going to get back here? Finally, they get up to us, and they start talking in Italian, and we're like, okay, like, what are you saying? Oh, no, that's Spanish. And we're like, please just let us go. We'll pay you whatever. And they're like, no. So in Italian, they rudely got angry at us and told us to get off the bus. So we're off the bus, and I remember sitting in the dark in this Roman street, and these guys are like yelling at us, and I'm like, I'm sorry, we're just tourists. We didn't know, all that kind of stuff. And then they yelled at us, and then they gave us 2 tickets, about $350 for literally a 10-minute bus ride was what we ended up having to pay. And I was so angry. I was like, this would never happen in America. Like, if there were tourists from like Japan or something, they didn't speak English, and they came to New York City, they would never charge. And I was getting all like righteous indignation and all that kind of stuff, and I was all angry about it. But I really just felt bad, because I convinced my dad to get on the bus, and we really didn't have a plan, and we didn't know what we were doing, and I cost him a bunch of money. So that made me mad. And then the next day, we get to this big terminal for a train ride to go up to Florence, and we're excited. We're like in this little like cool, like, you know, the European, like, I don't know, the train thing, and all we got is that little rinky-dink Skytram thing in downtown Jacksonville, right? And it's like 3 people can get on it. It feels like it's about to fall over, and it doesn't even go anywhere. It goes like 3/4 of a mile, and it's like, why did we spend money on this? Anyway, and so we get on this train, and we're like, this is incredible, and we're putting our bags up, and I remember, it's just like, have you ever thought how crazy it is that you just remember things in your mind? Like, you remember pictures, like mental pictures. I remember this woman with a baby walking past my dad, lightly bumping into him, saying something in Italian, and walking away. And he's putting up the luggage, everything. We sit down. And a couple of hours into the ride, my dad says to my mom, honey, do you know where my wallet is? And she's like, no, I don't know where your wallet is. And she's like, did you check your bag? And he's starting to get a little bit, have you ever lost your wallet? Anybody ever lost your wallet? Or maybe more important for you, have you ever lost your phone? You know that feeling? The heart starts racing, you start to sweat all over your body profusely. We're like, oh my gosh, and then I had it here, and you're starting to get all worried. Like, my dad's getting like that, and he's like, oh my gosh, like what are we gonna do? And so he starts getting angry. He starts doing like pastor cussing, where he just starts the cuss word, but then he never finishes. He's like, oh, son of a man, and I can't believe this. And he's just kind of starting all the words. And my mom's like, well, Jerry, did you? And that's always helpful. Guys, it'll be awesome when you get married. I'm just kidding. And so she's saying that to him, and me and my sisters are like, our vacation's over. Like, we can't. Are we ever gonna get home? Can we afford the flight? Like, we didn't know how money worked, and like we're just like, I don't know. Like, are we gonna lose all our money? Are they gonna like just charge on our credit cards? Are we gonna lose our house? Like, we're going all the way down like to the worst case scenario. And it turns out, and I'm not even sure if these terms are politically correct or not, because I don't live in Italy. But it turns out that the woman that stole or pickpocketed from my dad, took his wallet as she bumped into him, was what they might call a gypsy in Italy, and they're like immigrants from Eastern Europe, and they kind of, I don't really know, I'd have to ask Annalisa, because she's from Italy, but I didn't ask her, but like they kind of like live on the streets and kind of beg, kind of, I don't know, I'm probably being offensive, but anyway, so they steal from people often, and they hang out in bus terminals, and they pick on stupid Americans, and this lady didn't even have a real baby. She had like a bunch of stuff. We found out sometimes they just have fake babies, so that people like, oh, they're fine, they're not going to do anything, and then they pickpocket you because you're not suspecting it. And so we realized that, and we're like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, this sucks, I hate Italy, and oh my gosh, I can't believe they're stealing from this nice
pastor who's half cussing in the train as we walk around, and then we get off at the next place, and they're trying to like cancel cards and all that kind of stuff, and my sisters are crying, and I'm just like standing there like our life's over, and then my mom, guys, if y'all know my mom, Miss Denise, where you at? Where you at? She back there. So she goes into the Florence train station, and it's this big, magnificent building with these high ceilings, and it's like when you whisper, it echoes. And so she walks in, and she's, I literally can't believe she did this. She walks in, and she realizes that the gypsies pickpocketed my dad. So she sees other gypsies 3 hours away who don't have any relation to the gypsy in Rome, right? They don't know. They didn't steal from my dad, but they got blamed. And so she walks over, and she just starts yelling out, gypsies, gypsies, that's not even a real baby. And I'm like, Mom, like, you don't even know her. Like, she might be, see, it was a baby, Mom. Like, you were wrong. No, but like, we're like, Mom's yelling that, and me and Ashley are like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, we're gonna get like arrested or like kept here forever. Like, this is awful, awful, awful. And anyway, so towards the end of the trip, even though it was an amazing trip, amazing food, all that kind of stuff, I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I just want to go home. And I remember we had like 2 days left in the trip, and I was like, I got to get in my own bed. I got to get back into America. I got to get back to where people speak English. I got to get back to where I feel comfortable, where I feel at home. That's really what we're looking at when we go home, is this feeling of familiarity. Like when you go to your house and you know where everything is. You have your bed, you have like your dresser, you know where your clothes are, you know where the snacks are, you know the sounds your house makes, you know how to do every single thing in your house, and it's comfortable. It's familiar. It's home. It's home. Home, really, it's not just a house, and it's not even the place that you live. Home is a place where you belong and are loved. And I know I added a few words to that fill in the blank, so if you're kind of OCD like me, you're like, I can't believe he did that. There's a period. There's not supposed to be any more words, but there are. Home is a place where you belong and are loved. We feel at home in environments where we are comfortable and can be ourselves. We feel at home in environments where we are comfortable and can be ourselves. Home is a place where you belong and are loved. A place where you belong and are loved. It's a place where you can be yourself. Home, you'll find that at home, your best self will come out and your worst self will come out, right? Like for a lot of you, I get like your best side, and then your parents are like, you think my kid is like nice? You should see them at home. And I know it because now I have a kid, and like she goes to kindergarten, she's not in kindergarten yet, she goes to pre-K at the church, and she is sweet little PK daughter, like pastor's kid. She's just walking around and, hey, Miss Christine, and here's my backpack and my lunch. And she goes home and she's demon possessed. And it is scary. And there have been times where I often tell my wife, she's holding us hostage. Like, we literally cannot do anything with this little girl. She'll just sit in the car, and I'm just like, I can't do anything. Because if I pick you up, you're just going to kick me or like pee in your pants or like pee all over me or something like. And if I just let you do what you're going to do, I'll never go anywhere, ever. I won't go to work. You won't go to school. Nothing will happen. So she routinely holds us hostage. So I know how kids tend to act at home. But the reason why we act that way, think about it, is because we're comfortable. We can be ourselves. You don't throw temper tantrums most of the time at school or at work or with your friends. But you'll do things around your parents and your siblings that you would never do anywhere else. Why? Because you feel comfortable. You feel like you belong. You feel like you can be yourself. So I want you to think to yourself, where do you feel at home? Where do you feel at home? Where do you feel at home? For some of you, lucky for you, it is at home with your family in your house. But for some of you, it's not home. Some of you have recently gone through like your family or your parents splitting up, and now you don't live in your childhood home, and they're in two different places, and the people aren't the same, the house isn't the same, nothing feels the same, and it's not home anymore. For some of you, you've lost a loved one, and it doesn't feel like home anymore. For some of you, you never had a good home life, and so home doesn't really feel like home. It's just a house where you live. But for some of you, home is school. And you feel comfortable there. You feel like you can be yourself there. Your home is maybe at work. Maybe it's at a friend's house where you're like you go over there all the time. You spend the night, all that kind of stuff. And you're just like, I just feel at home here. I feel safe here. I feel secure here. Some of you, you feel at home when you're alone. Just anywhere, alone. You just feel safer and more comfortable when you're alone. Some of you feel at home at the beach. Some of you feel at home on an athletic field or playing a sport. Some of you feel home at church. We all feel at home at different places, but we all have something in common. We all have a place where we belong and are loved. And that's really what we're going to talk about all weekend, is we're going to be talking about home. Everybody say home. Everybody say home. All right. So we're going to be looking at Luke 15. Now, I know for some of you self-righteous Christians who grew up in church, you're going to be like, well, Luke 15, I've heard this before. Get over yourself. The Bible is alive. The Bible teaches us new things every single time we read it. The Bible will teach you things that you never thought it would teach you, and you may have read it 100 times. So if you've heard the stuff that we're going to talk about this weekend, here's my advice to you. Read it like it's the first time. I want you to just imagine that you've never heard it before. And if you've never heard it before, well, this will be easy for you. We're going to be looking at Luke 15. Now, Luke 15 is 3 consecutive stories. The Bible calls them parables that Jesus tells about things that weren't where they belonged. Or if you want to say it this way, things that weren't at home. He's going to talk about 3 things or people that weren't at home. And he does this for a reason. I'm going to read that reason to you in verses 1 and 2. It sets the context for the whole teaching, because Jesus didn't just randomly teach stuff. He taught things in reaction oftentimes to what was going on around him. So Luke 15, 1 and 2 says this. Now the tax collectors and sinners, so these are what they would call the bad people, the outsiders to religion, the people that are not welcome in the synagogue, not welcome in the temple. The tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. This should be your first cue or clue that you should like Jesus, because even the people that were outsiders to religion, outsiders to faith, outsiders to God, left out of the inner circle, they liked Jesus. They liked to hang with him, they liked to eat with him, they liked to have parties with him, and they liked to hear him teach. But the Pharisees, everybody say, but the Pharisees. So the Pharisees were the professional Jewish people. These were the people that knew the law. They ran the kingdom of Israel, or the nation of Israel, through the temple. They collected taxes, all that kind of stuff. So the Pharisees were really important. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, meaning they didn't say this to Jesus. They're just doing one of those things where it's like you kind of give the elbow to your friend, and you kind of whisper something in their ear, and no one else hears it. They muttered. At least they thought no one else heard it, but they didn't know they were dealing with God. So this man welcomes sinners. And then this next line is important. And he eats with them. He eats with them. This was a big deal, because having a meal with somebody in this day, in this culture, meant that you accepted them, that you loved them, that they belonged in your circle. It was a really big deal to eat a meal with someone. And so they're complaining because Jesus welcomes people that they don't. Let me say that again. They're complaining because Jesus welcomes people that they don't. And so Jesus is going to tell 3 stories that help us see that all people belong at home with God. That all people belong at home with God. Now there's 2 stories, one about a sheep, one about a coin. We'll talk about them later in the weekend. We're going to skip over them for now. We're going to go straight to the most famous of the 3 stories, the prodigal son, or the parable of the lost son. And just so you know, spoiler alert, the Father is God and we are the 2 sons. Just so you know, this will help you understand what's going on from the very beginning. So the Father represents God, and the 2 sons, one that we'll get to tonight, one that we'll get to later this weekend, they represent us. So, verse 11, here we go. Jesus continued. There was a man who had 2 sons. Everybody say 2 sons. 2 sons. There was a younger one and there was an older one. The younger one said to his daddy, Father, give me my share of the estate. Give me my share of the estate. Another way you could say is give me my inheritance. This is a big deal, because when do you get an inheritance? Do y'all know? When your parents die. So when he went at a young age, maybe an older teenager or young 20s or early 20s, when he went to his dad and asked for his inheritance, he's essentially saying, I don't care about you. I don't want to be in a relationship with you, but I want the money that I'm going to get when you die. I don't care about you. I just want your stuff. So he said, Dad, give me my share of the estate. And just so you know, the younger son only got half of what the older son got. So, and sometimes they didn't get anything. And so the younger son may have not even been entitled to an inheritance, even when his parents died. And yet he goes to his father and asks for his share of the money. And because his father gave him the choice to be in a relationship with him or not, he said yes. And he divided his property between them. This is important because God doesn't force himself on us. God will not force you to follow him. God will not. A lot of times people are like, well, like, I don't understand. Like, why are some people allowed to be in God's kingdom and others not? We all have the opportunity, but some choose not to. And he gives us the opportunity to say yes or no. He's not a dictator. Doesn't have a relationship with the people that he dictates. When you force yourself into a relationship with someone, that's not a relationship, that is abuse. And so God is not abusive, and so he does not force himself into a relationship with us. And it's the same way with the Father. He says, all right, go ahead, take the property and go. So he divided his property between them. Not long after that. Other translations say not many days later. So maybe a couple weeks later, the younger son got together all he had, all his stuff, and he set off for a distant country. So apparently this relationship was broken. This relationship was not good. It wasn't just about the money. Because as soon as he got the money, he left. He didn't want to be in a relationship with his father. And we don't really know what happened. We don't know how things got so bad. But all we know is that he was fed up with his family. He was so fed up with his family that he didn't just leave his house. He didn't just leave his neighborhood. He didn't just leave his city. He left his nation. He left his culture. He left his religion. He left everything behind. That's how much he had disdain for where he came from. And he went off to a distant country. Do y'all remember when you were little and you ran away? Anybody ever do that? Yeah, we all did it, right? We got our granola bar from our mom that she bought. We got our little hydro flask water bottle because we're spoiled, and we put it in our little fancy backpack, and we put it with like maybe a T-shirt or something and a toy, and we said, "Mom, I'm running away. Dad, I'm running away." And they were like, "Good, we're gonna go take a nap." So you walked out and you went into the woods, or you went to your neighbor's house, or you went to your friend's house, and you thought, "I'm gonna do things on my own. I'm going to figure it out on my own." But we don't just do that once. Generally, we do it a lot of times in our lives. I mean, y'all are teenagers. Y'all all know. Y'all all had that thought before. Man, I just got to get out of this house. And maybe you've said it. Maybe you've run away for a few days. Maybe you've gone to your friend's house and just been like, "Oh, I'll be back later." And you have some screaming match with your parents and you go. But we've all felt that. Some of you who are like juniors and seniors, like, "I can't wait till I'm 18. I can't wait till I go to college. I can't wait till I get out of the house. I can't wait till I'm done with my parents. I want to go somewhere else." This is a really important thing that basically all humans go through. And it's this. We all wonder if there's a better home out there somewhere. We all wonder if there is a better home out there somewhere. And we don't just do it when we're little. Humans do it all the time. Is there a better job? Is there a better relationship? Is there a better house? Is there a better car? Is it better to be married than single? Is it better to be single than married? Is it better to be retired than working? Like, is there something better for me? So this son had that same feeling, the feeling that we often get. And he went off to a distant country, and there he squandered. I love that word. It just sounds cool. Squandered. Everybody say squandered. Squandered. It means he wasted. It's actually, the Greek word that's used here is like a farming word. So like you're just tossing seeds out into the wind and just they're landing. You don't even know where they land. That's how he spent his money. He just went out and he just tossed it into the streets. He tossed it into different things around him. And he lived a wild life. He squandered his wealth. Apparently he had a lot. We're hearing the word estate and wealth. That means he was rich. So he had a lot of money. And he squandered it in wild living. And after he had spent everything, there was a severe famine. There was a severe famine in the whole country. And I want you to know something. One day of rain or no rain doesn't make it a famine. Famines take time to develop. So what we know about this young man is that he was gone maybe for years. for years, out on his own. And this famine happens after he had spent all he had, and he began to be in need. When we run away from home, we often do it for one of four reasons, especially when we're young. We often try to make a home from acceptance, pleasure, stuff, and success. We often try to make a home from acceptance, pleasure, stuff, and success. We know from this one word, wild living. Wild. We know from the Greek word that's used here what he went and he did. And I mean, I know sometimes y'all think like teenagers think they invented partying. Man, they didn't do it like they do in 2022. I mean, it's different. No, it's not different. 2,000 years ago, they were doing all the same crap y'all think is cool today. You didn't invent it. You're not the first person like, oh, I got drunk. Awesome. Like you're not clever when you do that. You're not special or unique when you do that. You're just doing what everybody else does. And we don't have to assume what the man did. He's a young guy who has a bunch of money and got out on his own for the first time. What did he do? He spent it on drugs, sex, and drinking. That's it. Maybe a couple of nice robes, maybe a donkey or two, maybe a chariot or something like that. He goes out and he spends it on everything that young people spend their money on when they get out of the house on their own. And we do the same thing. We often try to make a home from acceptance, pleasure, stuff, and success. And what did he do? He wasted it. And he began to be in need. So look at what he does. He went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, which Jewish people, they were, how do I say this kindly? They were extremely prejudiced and extremely culture-centric, meaning they were about their people and not other people. And so they did not like foreigners. They did not like outsiders. So for him to go and work for an outsider, work for a foreigner, was bad enough. But then it got worse because that foreigner sent him to his fields to feed pigs. If you have any Jewish friends, they probably don't eat pork. That's been that way for thousands of years because they see pigs as a filthy, dirty, unclean animal. So to touch them, to come in contact with them, to eat them, to feed them would be just almost the nastiest thing you could possibly do. But that's where he was at. It was the bottom of the bottom for him. And he longed to fill his stomach. He didn't have two stomachs. That would be weird. He had one stomach. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating. But no one gave him anything. Now this next verse is so powerful. It's really what I've been praying over this trip, over this weekend for our students. When he came to his senses. Everybody say that together. When he came to his senses. At some point, it's like he wakes up out of a dream. It's like he wakes up out of a fog. It's like he comes out of a coma and he realizes, what am I doing? Like what on earth has my life turned into? Like I thought I was going to find a better home on the road than I had at home. But it's not good. He came to his senses, and here's what he says. He says, how many of my father's servants have food to spare? They have extra food. They throw away food. And here I am starving to death. So he comes up with a plan. He says, I'm going to go back to my father. And I got this whole story. I'm going to talk about religion. I'm going to talk about our relationship. I'm going to make it sound really good. Father, I sinned against God and I sinned against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Just make me like one of your hired servants. I don't need to be a son. Just make me a servant, because I know being a servant in your house is better than what I figured out on the road. It's better than what I tried to make out on the road. This is a question we all have to ask ourselves. What will you do when you realize the home you built doesn't feel like home? What are you going to do when you realize the home you built doesn't feel like home? When you realize the acceptance doesn't fulfill you? When you realize pleasure doesn't last? When you realize stuff gets old, breaks down? When you realize success is fleeting, that you just want the next thing, the next success, the next win, the next victory, the next paycheck? What are you going to do when you look at your life and you realize everything you left God for, everything you left home for, didn't really do much for you? What are you going to do when you hit rock bottom? And here's my prayer for y'all. Y'all don't have to hit rock bottom. You don't have to find yourself in pig slop to realize I need to make a change. You can make a change before any of that happens. You can make a change this weekend. And even if you are in the pit as you come into this weekend, you can make a change. You can make a change. C.S. Lewis, this old British guy who's dead now, but he wrote about God a lot and he's amazing. He said this, if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. If nothing in the home that we make for ourselves satisfies us, there's only one logical explanation, that we were made for another home. That's the home we're going to be talking about throughout this week. In verse 20, so he got up and he went to his father. He got up and he went to his father. This next verse is so powerful. But while he was still a long way off. While he was still a long way off. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him. I want you to think about this. He's been gone for years. He's probably wearing rags. He's been walking for weeks, months. He didn't have a donkey, he didn't have a car, he didn't have an airplane. He's been on the streets for a long time. He's not a very pleasant sight. He comes back with nothing. He's in a bad way. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. Before I even get to how his father reacted, I want you to think about this. What does it mean that while he was at the edge of the property, a long way off, what does it mean that his father saw him? You can answer. What was that? He was watching. He was watching. He saw him when he was still a long way off. Think about that. He had been gone for years. Years. And his father somehow happened to see him. He steps out onto his porch and he looks down his property. And somehow he happens to see him as he comes back onto the property after he's been gone for years. How could that possibly happen? Was it an accident? I don't know, maybe. Maybe he just happened to look up and see his son. But it doesn't seem likely, does it? It seems more likely that he was looking for him. That every day, as he did his normal day-to-day stuff, that he'd look out the window and hope his son would come back. That he'd go out down the driveway and just look up and down the road. Maybe he would see his son. And remember, this is not a time of email, text messaging, phone calls. When his son left, he never thought he'd see him again. It was basically over. But every day, he'd go out and he'd look for his son. Let me tell y'all something. Everybody look at me. Middle schoolers, high schoolers, listen to me. God sees you. God sees you. And this isn't some corny self-help, God loves you. Oh, so no, this isn't that. This isn't me trying to make you feel better about yourself. I want you to understand something. God is the Father here. God sees you. He sees you in your junk. He sees you in your successes. He sees you in your failure. He sees you in your sin. He sees you in your loneliness. He sees you in your depression. He sees you in your anxiety. He sees you when you're yelling at your parents and when you're getting yelled at. He sees you when tears fall down your face and no one else knows it. He sees you on your bed at night. He sees you in the morning. He sees you at school. You may not even believe in him. I know some of you don't. That's okay. That's okay. But he still sees you. You don't have to believe in him for him to believe in you, for him to see you. This is so powerful. Before we even get to what he did, just think about that. God sees you. You could be so far away while you're a long way off. You don't even know what you believe. You don't even know what you think about all this. God sees you. He knew you were coming this weekend. He knew you'd be here. It's not an accident. In In fact, if you've never been here before, you're probably here, most of you, because one of your friends loves you so much, that they wanted you to come, maybe have a chance to meet Jesus. Just maybe. I know y'all think it's just like, oh, he just wanted me to come because he's my boy or whatever. No, he cares about you. She cares about you. They want your life to be changed by Jesus because he's changed their life. Here's what we need to know about God. God is constantly watching the road and waiting for us to come home. And now I want you to see how the Father reacts. Now, if it was me, I'd probably be like, he's back, honey, he's back. It doesn't look like he has much. Yeah, I knew he'd come back. I knew. You'd at least get a snarky comment from me. You'd at least get a snarky comment. At the least. Now, the people listening to this story, they had expectations for a rebellious son because they were Jewish people. Let me read this to you real quick. Now, this is not what had to happen, but they would not have been surprised if this is how the story ended. Here's how to treat a rebellious son in Deuteronomy 21, verse 18. If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother and will not listen to them when they discipline him, his mother and father shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders. They shall say to the elders, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. Yay! You must purge the evil from among you. Now, the father didn't have to do that. That's not how Old Testament law works. But they would not have been surprised by that answer. And they would not have been shocked. And they might not have even thought it was wrong. But look at how Jesus ends this story. While he was a long way off, his father saw him, and he was filled with compassion. It's a Greek word. I've preached about it before. Splachnizomai. It means your bowels, your guts are reaching out to somebody. That like everything in you is drawn to that person. That's how badly you feel for them. That's how much you love them. That's how much you care for them. And he was filled with such compassion that he ran to his son. Just so you know, old men in ancient Israel did not run. They didn't run anywhere. People ran to them. He runs to his son. He threw his arms around him and he kissed him. And the Greek word there means he kissed him over and over again. This kid stank. He was disgusting. He was covered in dirt, covered in pig slop. He was poor. He was broken. He was addicted. He was hurting. And his father could not stop kissing him all over him like he was a little baby again. That's the way your father loves you. That's the way God loves you. That's how God loves you. I don't believe in God. It doesn't matter. That's how God loves you. That's how God thinks about you. That's how God treats you. And the son starts his excuse making. Father, I sinned against heaven. I sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And before he can even get to the clincher, hey, just make me a servant. The father turns to his actual servants. Hold on, son. I got to do something. And he says, quick, come on. Bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. That means I need the best filet mignon we got. Let's have a feast and celebrate. Why? Because I thought my boy was dead. I thought he was never coming home. I thought I would never see him again. But guess what? He's alive. He was lost. And now he's found. He wasn't where he belonged. But now he's home. He's in the place where he belongs. He's in the place where he is loved. And so they began to celebrate. Home is about belonging. It's about being welcomed, and you belong with the Heavenly Father. I know. I was just sitting down here during worship, and God just brought some of you to my mind. And I was just thinking, I know some of you have barely been to church since before quarantine. I get it. Things changed. The world changed. You kind of fell away. I get it. I know some of you are struggling with some massive things. Mental illness, self-harm, addiction. Your friends are in fights with you. Your parents are in fights with you. You got crap going on at home. I know some of you don't know Jesus. You don't care about Jesus. You don't really care. This is the low light of the week, and you're like, give me the dance, give me the football, give me the scavenger hunt, and those 4 worship services. Let me just get through them. It's going to be awful. Listen, it doesn't matter which boat you fall in, or if you're coming in here, you're like, I'm on fire for Jesus, I love him. Listen, I want you to understand, Jesus sees you. He loves you. He wants you here, and he wants you in his home. You always belong in his home. Always. forever. We're going to sing a song over you and just have a chance for you to watch a video, and then I'll tell you how we're going to close. So before we go back into worship, we're just going to give you an opportunity, and we'll probably do it basically every service, or 3 out of 4 services. And I know when you come to one of these camps and stuff, you're like, oh, like, I'll get myself kind of warmed up, maybe I'll think about Jesus the last night or something. But generally in the student ministry, we don't believe that there's a certain time or place where we give our lives to Christ. We don't believe that there's a certain buildup that has to happen for us to come to know Jesus. We believe that first morning, first night, anytime throughout the weekend, that you can come to know Jesus. So I want to give you an opportunity. And for some of you, you're not paying attention, you don't really care. Cool. You do your thing. But some of you have felt something. And you really don't even know what it is. Or maybe you haven't felt it for a very long time. Maybe you'd forgotten that kind of feeling or that part of your life. Some of you throughout this service, throughout the video, throughout worship at the beginning, maybe throughout the message, there was something. You don't even really know how to describe it, but you felt something moving within you. As Jesus followers, we call that the power of the Holy Spirit. That's God moving in us. So I want to give you an opportunity to give your life to Christ. Right now, in front of people. We're not bowing our heads. We're not closing our eyes. If you make the decision, you'll be public with it. If you don't, again, it's your decision. God does not force himself on us. I'm going to give you the opportunity to pray a prayer, and it's not my words that somehow bring you into relationship with Jesus. It is your trust and belief in a Father who sees you. He knows your name. He knows every hair on your head. Think about that. Every hair on your head. He knows every day you've lived. He knows all the days that you'll live for the rest of your life. He knows when you'll breathe your last breath. He knows who you'll love. He knows who will hurt you. He knows who you will hurt. He knows the mistakes you'll make. He knows the roads you'll go down. And he sees you. And he loves you. And he doesn't need you to get yourself cleaned up. He doesn't need you to warm yourself up and say a couple prayers to make him like you again. Listen to me. He loves you right now, just as you are. Does he want you to stay as you are forever? Heck no. But he wants you just as you are right now. So if this is for you, on the count of three, I'm gonna just ask you to raise your hand, to remember the time you said yes to Jesus, to remember the moment where in a room full of people, even though your heart was beating fast and you were like, I don't know, you made a decision to follow after him. You made a decision to come back home, or to come home for the first time. So if that's you, maybe it's you for the first time, maybe it's you coming back to Jesus after a long time. Either way, on the count of three, I want you to raise your hand and pray a prayer with me. And then we'll tell you how we can follow up with you with either decision that you make. 1, 2, 3. Put your hand up if that's you. Put your hand up if that's you. Give you a few more seconds. Pray this prayer with me. Jesus, I'm yours. I'm ready to come home. I'm done trying to live life the way I want to live it. I'm done trying to make my own home. I'm done trying to do what I want to do. I'm ready to come home to a loving Father. I believe you are the Son of God, that you died and you rose again for me. Forgive me for what I've done. I want to follow after you. Be the Lord of my life. In your name. Amen. If that was you, Jacob, where you at? Jacob's right there. Here's what I want you to do. Before anybody else stands up, and I know this is just gut-wrenching. If you raise your hand, just go down the hallway or go down the aisle, either way, and just go talk to Jacob. He's going to follow up with you. Please, please, please. I saw a hand down here. Just go. Come on, honey. Go. And who else was up there? Who else was raising their hand? Go ahead and get up. Don't be shy. That's awesome. 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 Hey, the rest of us, let's stand together. And I want to encourage you. Don't be kind of coming into this thing like I'm going to kind of slide in and warm up to worship. I want to encourage you to just shout your hearts out to the Father who loves us just as we are. So let's worship together.